now is the time to say a few words about Mrs. Thorpe. Now, Mrs. Thorpe is well known to pretty much everybody here, but I have a couple of, it's worth mentioning a few things about Mrs. Thorpe. And I have a cheat sheet here because there's so many things I could say I'm not going to say, but it's nice to have a reference. Neal was born and raised in Montclair, the family home around here, which, as I understand it, was built by your great-great-grandfather, Joseph Whitaker. Neal has led a life filled with accomplishments. She, and this is a long list, I'm just doing a couple. She graduated from Smith College. She was a Russian scholar. She was a licensed pilot, a researcher for Time magazine, editor for Life and Red Book magazine, publisher of the, was she in the CIA? Rumor has it that might have something to do with the Russian. What do I know? Possible. Sure. Wait. There's a bit more. She published the Evening Phoenix. Yeah. And was the driving force behind virtually all of the SCA's significant accomplishments over its first 3 decades. Now, when I came on the board somewhere around in the early 90s, one of my first assignments for one of the annual membership dinners, which as I recall was up at called the Barn or something yes, was to do some sort of commemorative thing for Neal Thorpe. Well, the first thing was, who's Neal Thorpe? And so I did some research and I came up with something, and it was well received. And then in 1997, when Neal was retiring from the board, we had a big dinner, and I did, this time I knew exactly who Neal Thorpe was. And so we had another presentation and proclamation. Well, today, three's the charm. Back on December 10, the board passed a resolution, and these things do wander on a bit, but I think given the significance of the occasion, it's worth repeating the resolution. Whereas, throughout her full and wonderful life, Neal Thorpe has been enchanted with the natural beauty of and the flora and fauna along the Montclair to Port Providence Canal and the associated river and ravine trails. And whereas, weather and circumstances permitting, for many of those years, Neal Thorpe, often accompanied by her beloved dogs, first Daisy, then Rocco, and most recently Peter, would daily walk one or more of the canal area trails. And whereas Neal Thorpe was the driving force behind the creation of the Schuylkill Canal Association. And whereas Neal Thorpe served as a member of the board of directors of the association for 25 years, from its inception until her resignation in 2007, ably serving at various times and on multiple occasions as the association's president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and I think she washed the dishes, though that's not in this particular document. Whereas throughout her tenure on the board and thereafter, Neal Thorpe tirelessly and effectively labored on behalf of the Schuylkill Canal Association in support of the purposes for which the association was organized, to restore, preserve, and improve the Montclair to Port Providence Canal and its environs. And whereas Neal Thorpe served as a popular and effective spokeswoman for the Canal Association and the canal in the Montclair, Port Providence, and Phoenixville communities and beyond. And whereas as a direct result of Neal Thorpe's vision, initiative, and persistence, millions of dollars in grant funding and other contributions were secured and expended to implement a myriad of improvements to the canal area, including, but in no way limited to, the construction of canoe launches along the Schuylkill River, restoration of the lock tender's house adjacent to Lock 60, and the recreation of a working lock at Lock 60, And whereas throughout her tenure on the board, Neal Thorpe served as a model and an inspiration to her fellow board and association members, and to all who appreciate and care for the canal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that considering the foregoing, and as a token of its appreciation, the Board of Directors of the Schuylkill Canal Association hereby formally designates the trail from the first ravine by the Lock 64 bay of the canal up to the plateau on the bluffs above, and along and then down the second ravine to the trail along the Schuylkill River as the Neal Thorpe Trail. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors commits the Schuylkill Canal Association to undertake its best efforts to ensure that the Neal Thorpe Trail is identified as such by appropriate signage and on such maps and other media as shall be published by the Schuylkill Canal Association. Now, we have a little presentation for you, Neal. I just want to say there's a baseball reference here, and I don't know much about baseball, but Darryl Strawberry was referred to, who was a player, I think, for the Mets, was referred to as the straw that stirs the drink. Now, there are a lot of people here today that have a lot to do with what we have today. But Neal, you were always the straw that stirs the drink. President of the association.
Oh, look! Oh, how wonderful! Thank you. Great.
There you go. Let's get some photo ops here.
Yeah. Can I say a word?
Of course. Yeah, no, go.
You've all had enough of me. I want to say that after I was through working, I left the newspaper overseas, so this gave me something to do. And it was really, although I grew up in Montclair, this was the first time that I became familiar with, I got to know the people of Montclair, of my birth community, the Lantos place. You all meant so much to me. Being part of this community has been so much to me. It's been such a great part of my life. And I want to thank everybody here. I don't know how this wonderful canal has survived so well, except through the care and attention and love of all of you who live here. God bless you all. It's wonderful. This is grubby. Thank God.
Well, we're very glad that you like it.
And Jamie, maybe you can handle. We can frame it. And why not frame it? But
I'll hang it up for you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Neal.